how can we better incorporate DEI into our nonprofit organizations and into our grant applications? A very important question right now, upon which I'm sure there will be many topics that I will be able to expand on. This is a generic sort of high-level strategy video on how to do this. I'm going to share 3 essential strategies for you to better incorporate DEI initiatives into your nonprofit and into your grant applications. I'm Benjamin Dean from grantgating.com. Thank you for jumping into this video. At the end of the video, please check out the description. There's a link for an additional 7 strategies as guidance for best practices in incorporating DEI into your nonprofit. So before I jump into the 3 strategies, what this is not a referendum on our feeling of the social construct that we are moving towards in terms of DEI, have moved towards, in many ways have been moving in this direction for 100 years. That's not what this is. According to a 2023 study by Candid, 57% of grant makers or funders said that they have increased their emphasis on DEI over the past 5 years. Over half of funders have increased this. This is a big time growing trend. And this, of course, includes requiring DEI information or strategies within the application and including that as a portion of the rubric. So, right now, sort of my feeling on it is that we are in the checkbox stage of this, where funders are really newly introducing these as application requirements in terms of variables that they determine on who does or does not receive funding. Funders at a bare minimum are needing to see that we are thinking about it and that we have implemented some strategies. Soon, as we move forward, more funders will be asking for more evidence and more sophistication of these efforts, more integration, more best practices being adhered to. So this is the direction that it's going. So it doesn't really matter what we feel about it. Of course, we should be feeling very good about it in terms of this being an important aspect. Just looking at it in terms of program development and program structure, there's an incredible amount of strength that every DEI initiative can bring to your organization if done properly. And ultimately, that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to run really solid organizations. And there are strategies to do everything that is trending in terms of requirements and also, what strategies that could be put in place to strengthen your organization or your project or program. So that's where we are and that's where we're going. So I'm going to jump into the strategies now that are not necessarily specifically about how to talk about your DEI initiatives, but they're just sort of jumping off points, baseline things that can be done to begin that process or strengthen the process of having sound initiatives that consider multiple points of view that serve underserved populations, that include feedback from your served populations into the decisions that you make around your program or project or organizational direction. Number 1, starting with leadership and governance. Really, this is the first step. You cannot, as either a grant writer or even an executive director, sort of, cowboy your way into these things. You need to have board input, board approval in some ways, and board buy-in on the direction that is needing to go. This is a subject that doesn't touch just one part of an organization. It touches almost every part of an organization, from program design, hiring, recruitment, program evaluation, service delivery, so many different aspects. So it cuts across everything that is talked about or pointed to in a grant application. You got to start with your leadership. And of course, if you're not the executive director needs to be included, but then, really the board, the governance of the organization. Board of directors should reflect diversity. That is one of the key things that is, most commonly or very commonly asked for in terms of the grant application. Does the board of directors reflect the diversity of the population that you serve? Now that can be stated without DEI, and anything that you might assume that means. Does the service that you provide, those that you provide the service to, are they represented on your governance team? Okay, so your board of directors is your governance team. Now, if that is not the case, and if there is, either hesitation or roadblocks or whatever the case is, if it's not the case, there are other ways to include in the governance structure feedback, input from stakeholders that are representative of the population that you serve. And that's, in my purview, done through a couple different ways. One is through committees, either ad hoc committees to the board of directors or standing committees for the board of directors. Maybe the most common one would be an advisory committee, a program advisory committee that has one or more of your board members on it as the liaison to the board. But that advisory committee can be constituted of members of the community, partner organizations, clients that you serve, other constituents that will help you take that feedback in on how your program is designed, how it's being delivered, what can be improved on, right? That is, that's a feedback loop. Now, that's not directly in your governance structure, but indirectly it is. And you can speak to that on almost every application. There's an opportunity for you to articulate that. Committees. So that's one strategy within governance and leadership. The other would be focus groups. Or in-depth interviews. You could put that into this category, but I'll say focus groups because that's typically where you're going to get better information, more compelling and interesting information. And that is to pull together a group of people that are representative of the clients that you serve, the diversity of the clients that you serve, looking at all the different variables and factors that contribute to the situations that people find themselves in. So that can be age, that can be income, that can be gender, that can be any marginalized aspect demographically. It could be geographically, it could be psychographically, it could also just be situationally. Individuals that have commutes longer than 45 minutes to their place of work, and what sort of amendments to the services that you provide to that population could be brought in terms of program design. What other services can you provide? All of that can be brought into a focus group, can also be brought into a committee, and then reported back to program management, program design team, executive director, and then, of course, to the board of directors. Okay, so those are they're not workarounds. They are very positive things, even if your board of directors does represent the population that you serve. It's not going to ever fully represent it. It's going to be impossible with the many ways that we can segment out different groups of people. But focus groups and committees, they are a more nimble way of doing that. Okay, so then, of course, as it comes to the grant application, then you have that content. Then you have that ability to speak to it, not just in terms of, hey, this is what we did, but here's what we did and here's what we learned from, right? That's very powerful and, again, very helpful to your program team. So that's number one, leadership and governance. Number two is to look at how to integrate some of the different initiatives, which, again, this video is not about going through the different initiatives. It's just, once you have a handle on what those things are, how do you integrate them into programs and services? Okay. This is where we will eventually be going, which is it's not going to be so much that you're going to be able to get away with in grant applications using DEI or diversity initiatives as a buzzword. But more so, grantors are going to be looking for it to be both, sort of the guiding principle, part of the guiding principles of the ethos of the organization, to the degree that that's applicable, but also how you design your programs, how you provide your services, what interventions you have that are specific for the different groups that you are targeting. And again, it can be a multitude of different things, but what is different? What is different about your program based upon the feedback that you've received or the research you've done, or what's just common sense around how to reach more people with greater awareness, how to better provide services. And then another category would be how to evaluate the programs. DEI in program evaluation, again, it cuts into that as well. So I have found that involving community members in the design of my programs is incredibly valuable. It's extremely effective. Okay. So one other sort of sub-tactic here would be pilot programs, small interventions with a small group of individuals within a target population. Or again, if you're not serving individuals, if you're serving groups, the same thing applies. If you're serving in an environmental geographic area, breaking things off into smaller bite-sized pieces so that you can actually get that feedback one-on-one or one-on group, whatever the case is. This provides an immense amount of information. I'll be providing more info on pilot programs in general and the value that they can provide for grant writers. It's mind-blowing what that can do for writing grants. But that is a vehicle through which you can begin to test out how to embed or integrate different accessibility points for parts of your population. Okay, so thinking about how you design your program, how you implement your program, how you evaluate your program. Those are really the main areas. And in that program design, program implementation stage, pilot programs are a really, really key tool. So as to say, if you are hearing this, and you're just like, gosh, I don't want to overhaul everything because things are going great. And I know that I'm serving so many people of diverse populations. I know that I'm doing things equitably. I know that I'm doing things right. Well, that's great. And that's a wonderful place to start. Try a pilot program to be able to track particular interventions that you have in a short period of time, a month, 2 months, 2 weeks, a day, depending on the type of service that you have. Bite-sized chunks that will give you information to talk about in your grant application. So let's say the scenario is you are working on a grant application right now. It is due in a month. That typically can be plenty of time to work with your program team to get some feedback on some particular interventions that you can implement within the next couple weeks that says this type of intervention is better for this target population. We know it's better because we did a pilot. Okay, we did a survey, right? Even a lower hanging fruit, a survey, focus group, that sort of thing. And that goes right into the embedding of the process of how you design and implement your programs. Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3 is a little bit softer, and that is high level softer, and that is fostering an inclusive culture. This is more than just having the right policies in place, which of course is a baseline, looking at your employee manual, looking at your bylaws, looking at your policies and procedures for different aspects of your program, looking at your standard operating procedures for your programs. All of that is something that will feed into culture to the degree that you are referencing those, abiding by those, discussing those with the team and the volunteers. But it's more than that. It's about creating an environment where on your team, everyone does feel respected. Everyone does feel valued. Everyone does feel that their unique experiences are something that is important to the organization. That is inclusivity, right? It is absolutely having the mindset that every person, volunteer staff, board member, client, partner, funder, anyone that would be what I would call stakeholder or constituent in the program that you're looking at, every single person has something to add, and they have something to add because of their unique experiences. Okay. And that is something that you have to have the mindset about. And the bonus of that is if you do, or if your team does, if those people on your team have those, you're going to get better information. You're going to have better feedback loops. You're going to build more trust in the community. That's good program design. So you want, especially right now, to encourage open discussions among your team and volunteers around initiatives and issues relating to DEI, providing ongoing training for your staff, and celebrating that diversity is a part of your organization's culture. Now, if diversity, I'll say with a lowercase d, insofar as we can define it as having many different points of view that are all looking at problems and attempting to solve problems or design services or improve services, having all those inputs into the continual improvement of your program, that being diversity bringing itself forth into decision making, that is a very good thing. Generally speaking, what are you controlling for? Well, at this point in time, you might be controlling for the ideas or the thoughts that people have coming in to such a conversation or a question revolving around DEI, because it is so currently polarizing. That may be something to control for. You may also control for the amount of time that you devote to it. There, of course, is a point in any managerial intervention where you reach diminishing returns, right? And I think, that is something to be aware of, that there is an aspect of not wanting to devote too many resources to any endeavor, whether it's optimization of one key element of your program, implementing DEI, specific, say, financial controls, right? If we use that as the category and say, okay, yeah, of course, nobody's going to disagree with having proper financial controls within your organization, checks and balances, policies and procedures. But if you're an organization of 3 people, there's only so many checks and balances you can have. There's only so many policies and procedures you can have that allow you to speak to differentiated aspects of those policies and how they're implemented. So it's not just DEI where there's diminishing returns. There's diminishing returns in everything that a manager does. So I have certainly seen firsthand how to develop with 2 primary organizations that I've worked with directly in this realm, in program design, volunteer management, recruitment of staff, all of these things, messaging, communications, how you're talking with everybody all together, how you're talking with different groups within your organization, how having that mindset and that belief that it works. Some of these strategies, they just work and they make things better. And I've seen how it increases morale. It allows for the culture to manage itself, how to develop organizational culture, the type that you want, the positive, the self-reinforcing, the self-managing culture, how you do that. That's a much bigger topic, but this as an aspect of that is part of it, right? Making sure, again, that your concentric circles of constituents, they feel very good about what they're doing, right? So it's not to say you need to make your nonprofit organization take a stand on any particular issue. You don't have to do that. And in many cases, you do not want to do that. Or you may personally want to do that, but you need to think about, is this what's best for our organization? Is this what's best for our community, right? So thinking about not necessarily putting flags in the sand, but having a way to authentically speak to inclusivity, diversity, how it's important to be equitable in the services that we provide. That does increase morale generally. It does have generally more employee retention because people feel more involved. And you're going to have a more effective organization if these type of strategies and others are implemented. So again, this is about getting grants, right? That's what I'm doing. This is what we are doing as people sitting down, filling out grant applications, networking, everything involved in the grant getting process. However, this is a subject that if you're an outside grant writer or you function that way, then it's going to be tough. There's going to be a lot of gray area. You're going to have points missed on the application, and you're going to decrease your likelihood of getting grants if you're not, at least at this point, checking some very basic boxes. And for all the other reasons I've listed, you should be considering this as well. So check out the free guide with 7 additional tips, strategies for implementing DEI into your programs. That's linked down in the description. And what challenges are you facing when it comes to implementing DEI? I would love to hear them. I would love to be able to respond and provide any guidance that I can. So go ahead and comment down below on that, and we can touch base there. Thank you so much for watching this video, and we will see you in the next one.